in collaboration with the Cyprus Mail. This is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Charalambous.
Coming up this week, as World Refugee Day approaches, we talk to the UNHCR representative in Cyprus.
But now there is a possibility for asylum seekers also to work in bakeries, but only for night shift. And this is, of course, something that we'd like to see changed.
And we hear about the opening of a new dignity centre where refugees can meet and interact.
We have a men's workshop where hopefully they can do things like carpentry, maybe start training for employment and stuff like that. On the second floor we have a safe space for children where parents can bring their children while they're using the Dignity Centre.
And from next week, all newborn babies in Cyprus will be offered free hearing tests.
It's totally non-invasive, it's very quick. What it involves, it's a sound which covers the sequences of human speech at the level of whisper.
We're looking this week at refugees because World Refugee Day is the 20th of the month. And joining us on the programme is the representative of the UNHCR in Cyprus, Katja Saha. They started their events earlier in the week. She's going to tell us what's happened and what's coming up. So Katja, you started, I think, on Tuesday.
Thank you, Rosie. Yes, we did. And we started with the business breakfast where we invited several employers or potential employers to discuss with us and the Cyprus Refugee Council the self-reliance of asylum seekers and refugees, and namely the access to employment. So it was extremely encouraging to receive such a strong support and to really feel that the employers would welcome more and more asylum seekers and refugees now that there has been a legal change and asylum seekers also have access to different sectors of the labour market.
How different sectors? Sorry, let me just pick you up on that, because when I read the expansion of the sectors, it still seems to be very blue-collar jobs, and a lot of refugees have qualifications that would enable them to be much more giving into Cypriot society in their field of expertise.
I fully agree with you. The difficulty in Cyprus is that, these restrictions apply to asylum seekers. So once the person has an international protection status, then he or she can be employed as any Cypriot. But these restrictions for asylum seekers, of course, still exist. And the sectors that were opened, of course, are not extremely broad and are mainly still in agriculture, farming, fisheries, so forth. But now there is a possibility for asylum seekers also to work in bakeries, but only for night shift. And this is, of course, something that we'd like to see changed because it is not possible for many asylum seekers who are mothers with several children alone here to work during the night because there are no childcare opportunities, but also now there's the possibility for asylum seekers to work in hotels or restaurants as kitchen aides, and this didn't exist before.
So it's a slight improvement. It can get better, perhaps.
We really hope it will get better in
But the business breakfast, you came away, I think, with a positive feeling that some of the reservations, let's call it, that Cypriot employers have had in the past about foreigners from certain countries no longer exists?
Well, yes, there are concerns, but we also, even before the breakfast, we reached out to large employers privately to see whether there would be interest. And absolutely there is interest, and that was confirmed during the breakfast. There is also a shortage of employees. So I think that we have found a niche where both the refugees, asylum seekers, interests match with the interests of the employers. So
a win-win situation. It's nice to hear that when we're talking about refugees for a change. Wednesday, there was, I believe, a concert.
The children who participate in the Sistema, which is a musical system that initially started in Venezuela and now is also implemented in Cyprus. So children from Larnaca and Nicosia portrayed what they had learned, a fantastic concert with really to celebrate the theme of refugees.
And people perhaps underestimate the power of music in terms of communication between cultures and, of course, the feeling that it gives to youngsters when they master an instrument.
Well, of course, I think we underestimate both the power of music and sports. I think these are two activities that should be accessible to all, and it really brings people, children together, and without necessarily needing to have a common language to communicate with.
Let's come to tonight, Friday the 14th of June, and the 6th Annual World Refugee Day Festival. Now that's happening, I think, in Phaneromeni Square in downtown Nicosia. It's been hugely successful in the past. Is anything new going to happen this year?
I think that we are going to continue with the same recipe that we found successful in the past. We're going to have, of course, a lot of music, good food from different kind of cultures, children's activities, and it's also an opportunity not just to interact with the asylum seekers and refugees and learn more, but really also educate oneself with some information that we will be providing during the evening.
Moving on then to the upcoming events.
Well, the main event, of course, the 20th of June, that is the day, the World Refugee Day, and we have the honor of having Alexia singing in a variety of languages, in Armenian, in Arabic, in Turkish, in Greek, English. So really world music she will be performing for us. She's been our collaborator and advocate for refugees' rights for a very long time, and we're extremely honored of having her.
And where's that happening? It's a free concert.
It is a free concert, so we really welcome everybody to come and join in singing with her. It is at the Costa Samot. And I think that locals know better where that is than me, but it is in the city. It's easily accessible, and so we really expect to see all the society represented at the event and to really sing and celebrate the issue of refugees.
And that is, let's remind people, Thursday the 20th, the day itself in the Constanza Moat in Nicosia, starting at?
It starts at 8:30 in the evening, but it might be a good idea to come a little bit earlier to have a good spot and a view of Alexia and her band.
And then let's move on to Friday. A couple of events happening on Friday, both sides of the Green Line.
Yes, absolutely. So we are going to have the fork food event. So that's the day after the concert, and that will be this time dedicated to the World Refugee Day. So among food vendors, we have several refugees who are chefs, professional chefs, and they will be cooking up different kind of dishes from different cultures, from Middle East, from Africa. And this is the first time that the event is entirely dedicated for refugees and the world food.
Now that's happening, I think, from 7 until 11.
Yes.
But a little earlier at 6:30 till 11:30. On the other side, what's happening there?
Well, there what we're going to have is an event called Better Together. And this is an event featuring musical performances, of course, food, again, from several countries, different kind of ethnic food, face painting, and information stands of several organizations. This is an event that's co-organized by Refugee Rights Association, together with SOS Children's Village in the northern Cyprus.
It's a busy time. We haven't finished yet. Monday, the 24th of June.
Monday we continue at 4 o'clock, and that is when we are going to have an event at the Nicosia Municipality Multifunctional Foundation. This is the occupational therapy department that marks the end of its special program that was implemented for refugees and asylum seekers from February-March this year until now.
So is that going to stop happening, or will it be reactivated, the occupational therapy, at some point in the future?
We really hope that it will continue.
What did they do, actually?
Working. Occupational therapy, you have different kinds of activities for individuals who have, for example, difficulties with the speech. It is really to improve their abilities, to engage in their daily life and to integrate better to the Cypriot society and to develop skills that are necessary to become self-reliant.
Which all, of course, helps with the integration. That's the all-important thing.
Yes.
And also on Monday, let's move down to Larnaca. You've got a festival happening down there as well.
Yes, of course, World Refugee Day Festival also in Larnaca. And this will be, needless to say, with the participation of refugees and asylum seekers who are living in Cyprus. And again, of course, it cannot be a refugee event without world music and performances from different parts of the world. Again, with the food stands, selling food from India, from Pakistan, from Syria, from different places. And this is organized by Oasis, together with Open Societies and the municipality of Larnaca.
You've managed, it seems to me, as the UNHCR office here in Cyprus, Katja, to get a lot more people involved. How have you done that?
Well, we have certainly tried to work with the broader spectrum of the society. We work with the private sector, I think, more than ever, and we hope to expand to collaborate. But definitely we've reached out to the universities with the fantastic support that we are now receiving from several universities. We've organized joint events and discussions and research. So it is really the idea that we should bring the issue closer to the people instead of expecting them to find us and the information, because there are more and more asylum seekers and refugees coming to Cyprus. And so it is time that we really embrace this part of this new part of the society that is also important for different sectors and not less for the economical sector. So definitely it is a win-win situation. We should try to find ways that benefit both the Cypriot society and the newcomers who need to find ways to integrate.
Well, that is the head of the UNHCR in Cyprus, Katja Sacha, talking to us about the massive events that are coming up to mark World Refugee Day. And you can hashtag Step with Refugees. Did you know that every year refugees walk over 2 billion kilometres to safety? Just think about that. They invite you to join their movement at www.stepwithrefugees.org. A brand new refugee support centre is opening in Old Nicosia, and we're talking this week to the man behind it all. He's been in Cyprus for the last 3 months, setting up the Dignity Centre from refugeesupport.eu. He is John Sloan. John, give us the background first, because you've done this in Greece, and I think you are actually a UK charity.
Yeah, we're a UK-based charity. We're based in Brighton, in the UK. And we've been in Greece for now just over 3 years, where we now are in 3 different refugee camps, the largest one which holds just about 1,200 refugees, where our speciality is food security and hygiene products for women, Pampers for children, etc., etc. And we've been reading about what's been happening in Cyprus and the numbers that were coming to Cyprus and the asylum seekers here, and we felt that really we ought to try and do something in Cyprus to help these people as well.
Now, we're talking about setting up the one in Nicosia, but I think you've got plans for other towns as well.
Yeah, so the idea of the Dignity Centres is to give people a space that they can feel part ownership of. It's a space that we're providing for them to do activities, so it's on 3 floors of the building we're on. So on the ground floor we have a men's workshop where hopefully they can do things like carpentry, maybe start training for employment and stuff like that. On the second floor we have a safe space for children where parents can bring their children while they're using the Dignity Centre, where we're providing toys and things for them to do, activities for them to do. Then we have a women's space where just for women, where we are going to be providing sewing machines, anything, weaving machines, and really, we're waiting to hear from the people who are going to use it what they want us to provide.
So you're looking for feedback, basically?
Yeah, what we want is well, it's very important to us, so that people feel it is their space, is that we want people to come and visit us and tell us what they would like us to see us providing. And hopefully we will be able to provide it. Obviously there are some financial restraints on this, but we want to try and make it as much of what we're getting as input from those people that will use this. Not us saying, well, this is what we're providing. If you don't like it,
go somewhere else.
Go somewhere else. What we're trying to do is to say to people, right, and it's changing it will change every week, every month, new things will happen. But tell us what you want us to provide, what you need, mainly, and hopefully we'll be able to provide it for them.
Right, now the grand opening is on the 17th.
On the 17th is when we become, so to speak, active. So, and also then what I didn't mention was on the third floor, we've built now a classroom where we want to do language training to teach people Greek and English mainly, both for children and for adults, to help them integrate into the society as well, and hopefully help them get jobs by being able to speak the language and stuff like that.
And presumably some of the people using this centre are going to be, in a sense, a bit like the University of the Third Age. If they have a talent or an expertise, they may be able to volunteer to run courses for other people using the centre.
Definitely, and also we're encouraging local Cypriots and people to come and help us and to be part of the process, to help with the integration, to teach Greek, or to it's also important, to teach people about the customs, that they know, what is the acceptable thing to do in Cyprus, what isn't acceptable, and stuff like that, so that people have a better idea of how they need to behave to integrate and be accepted into the local communities.
Your experience in Greece must have helped you tremendously, since our culture is so similar here in Cyprus. What sort of things, apropos of what you were just saying, have you come up with that people perhaps aren't aware of, what's acceptable and not?
Well, in Greece, where we've been for 3 years, that's a difficult question to answer. I mean, I'd like to just say we hopefully they've got the hang of drinking coffee and things like that. It's just general sort of the way you greet people, the way that when you're going shopping or something like that. Just silly things sometimes, like being able to accept. That can be difficult in Greece as well. I don't know about Cyprus. The etiquette of queuing and waiting your turn, and how to just generally kind of. It's so difficult to explain in words, to blend in with the community, instead of standing out, but just to blend in with the community. And it's very important, the way that you, especially here in Cyprus, I've noticed where everybody says good morning to everybody, and everybody's very accepting over here. And also for the people we're trying to help, it's trying for them also to get rid of some of the little bit of fear that they have of going out and about. A lot of them don't go out because they're not sure how they'll be accepted, and it's trying to get this message over. If you try and blend in with the local people, try and accept the way that they do things, then you will blend in very easily.
Now, what are the opening hours of the centre?
Okay, the centre, that's a little bit of a moving thing at the moment. At the moment, we're thinking that most probably it will be from 10 o'clock in the morning till about 8 o'clock in the evening. Especially, for the classes, if there are people, that are already working, then we need to hold the classes in the evening for them, for the adults, certainly anyway. So, that again will become clearer. The space is available for people to book, so it's not just for refugee support to use, but if any other group of people that are trying to do things want to book the space for a particular function or some activity that they want to do, then we have a booking system and the space is theirs. It's not our space as in refugee support, it's a space we're creating for people locally. We want to encourage people in Cyprus, to see the space as somewhere that they can be involved in this whole thing. So if somebody has a great idea of some activity that they want to do, then just let us know and we will make the space available to them.
And you obviously will need volunteers as well. So how should people get in touch with you? Should they just drop in? Have you got a website or an email address, a Facebook page?
So
how can they get in touch if they, even just once a month, say, I can give you this amount of time?
No, we would very much encourage that. So the system work is that we have volunteers here all the time, our own volunteers. And just to give you some idea, since we've been in Greece for 3 years, we've had over 800 volunteers. And the most important thing is from 45 different countries. At the moment here, for instance, we have 6 volunteers here at the moment. As it happens occasionally, every single one of them is from a different country. We've got Australia, Luxembourg, the UK, now forgetting what the other was. But anyway, it was just one of those things when we sat down, we were all different nationalities.
And I presume that it also is quite important that, if possible, people who've got languages that come from the countries that the asylum seekers and refugees are coming from, so that when they arrive, there is somebody who can speak their language.
Yeah. So, but for local volunteers, we encourage people. We would very much like to see people locally. If they can just do an hour a week or a couple of hours a month, our website is refugeesupport.eu, and if you email us on info@refugeesupport.eu, it will be dealt with very quickly by our team in the UK who look after the volunteers.
Sounds perfect. So if you're downtown in the next day or two, then from the 17th, check it out. It's in Perikleos Street, which is pretty well close to the crossing point at Lydra Street. It's one of those little streets that you can look up in the old part of Nicosia, and we've been talking to John Sloan, who's been slaving away, setting it all up. We wish them well.
This is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Charalambous.
On June the 24th, our health service is rolling out a test for all newborn babies that is widely used elsewhere in the world. Until now, it's been something that you only did, I think, if you thought your child had a hearing problem. But from 24th of June, all babies will be tested as they're newborn to see whether they have hearing impairment of any sort. To discuss the issue with us, we're joined by the head of the ENT department at the General Hospital in Nicosia, Dr. Andreas Aspris, and by audiologist Marina Kalimachou. So, Andreas, if we can start with you, this is something that I know is done in the UK and in many other countries, and I think it has until now been something that required parents who thought there was a problem to come and get it checked. But this is going to be a huge difference for all newborn babies, because I think I'm right in saying that if you find a hearing impairment quickly, then it's very much easier to correct it.
Yes, we start this screening test from 2003 at the Makarios Hospital. Here we have the intensive care unit babies. This is the main department that gathers all the newborn babies with problems, and we check with screening the hearing from this year. And also by the next year we start the maternity department of the Makarios Hospital, which is the biggest maternity department in the government whole Cyprus.
But it will be in other maternity departments where babies are being born anywhere in Cyprus?
Yes, we have also in the private clinics, but also in the government hospitals. But most of these newborn babies having problems are sent to us to proceed in screening at the first level, and then if we detect problem, we proceed in the diagnosis and also we give a solution. These newborn babies, they follow on a surveillance. If we find mild to moderate hearing loss, we have to give the right instructions for the using of hearing aids. And if we detect after the diagnosis severe hearing loss, we proceed in cochlear implantations. All of these now are made here in our departments.
Let me come to you, Marina. Can you just explain what the screening involves? Because I think, again, I'm right in saying it's non-invasive, it's very quick, and as we said a moment ago, the advantages are huge.
Yeah, as you mentioned, it's totally non-invasive, it's very quick. What it involves, it's a sound which covers the sequences of human speech at the level of whisper. So the baby can be asleep, it can breastfeed, can do anything at the time we do the test. And if the baby is kind of calm, the test would not take more than 5 minutes.
So when we've come on to, let's say, the child in who you have detected some impairment, let's not say terribly serious, but let's start with the graduations. If it's a slight hearing loss, is it something that needs to be dealt with, or do any of these things happen that kids can then grow out of, or do they tend to get worse as the child gets older?
The main and important information to give is that if we fail the first screening test, it doesn't mean that the baby will have a problem or does have a problem. It could be that there's still fluids from pregnancy or some other problems, some mucus. So the protocol involves that if the baby doesn't pass the first one, you will get, through the health visitors, a second appointment again for screening. If they fail the second screening, then we go on to diagnostic.
Okay, and what sort of diagnostic would it be? I mean, a mild hearing loss, hearing aids, presumably?
Yes, we prefer to, at first, put the baby on surveillance. And we recommend to the parents to use, so we start with hearing aid. If we see that we have progressive hearing loss, and if we have levels of profound deafness, at least before the end of the first year, we proceed in cochlear implantation. Usually after 6 months, they are ready to proceed to cochlear implantation.
And that's something that the child would just live with, but with good hearing for the rest of their life?
Yes, and with no other problems. No other problems as in language delay or other problems that could be caused through hearing. So the early intervention is our motto, in a way that we have to test the babies within the first 10 days of life, from the 3rd day to the 10th day of life. If they fail the test, they're referred for again a screening test, and if they fail that, within 3 months, we would have a proper diagnosis through diagnostic tests, not screening tests. You go to diagnostics. Usually by 3 to 4 months of age, if they need, they are fitted with hearing aids. And they are observed by us, by early intervention teachers of the deaf, and then we see the progress. And depending on the progress, we'll change the rehabilitation or stay with that.
And can it get better? Or does it depend what's causing it? In fact, what does cause it in the first place?
That's another thing that's running in parallel. We're testing the etiology of the hearing loss. It could be genetic, it could be malformation, it could be many things. Or it just could be a delay in the maturity of the auditory nerve. So in rare cases, yes, we could get some kind of better results, but there is, throughout the world, 1% of children, we cannot find the etiology of the hearing loss. So it all depends on the clinical picture of the patient, not just the tests. We observe the parents are supported and instructed on how to test them. We test them with their hearing aids regularly. So we see the procedure, and depending on that, the whole team with the parents decides on how to proceed.
And I presume that sometimes there's good news and you can put in a sort of smaller hearing aid. Does that ever happen, that the hearing does improve somewhat?
As we said, in rare cases it could be just a delay in the maturity, or it could be a combination of sensory neural conductive hearing loss, like having, apart from the nerve, having fluid as well. So it depends. But the hearing aids are not smaller or bigger. You can change the level given to the child.
That's what I meant, I said small. I didn't mean in size. I meant in terms of noise reduction and so on. And the cochlear implant, Dr. Asprisa, if we come back to you, is it a big operation? Parents must be quite worried that their child is going into an operating theatre at around a year old. So what's involved?
Usually the cochlear implantation lasts from 2 to 3 hours until the patient wakes up. And it stays in our clinic 3-4 days after the operation. We have the experience of all the last almost 4 years. In babies, we proceed in implantations more than 15 newborn babies. sometimes we proceed implantation in a childhood or to an adult.
But that's because we didn't have the tests before, so now you'll be able to do it much more...
From a newborn baby up to an adult.
And the difference, what difference does a cochlear implant make? I mean, everybody's seen films, I think, of kids who've been deaf for years, and when they wake up from a cochlear implant, it's like a whole new world.
Yes, the cochlear implantation is the operation, but then you have the external auditory processor, which is usually activated a month afterwards. And then from there on, it's like a miracle. They hear everything. Okay, they come for regular fittings and programmings, but this imitates kind of the ear. You can have all the frequencies at different levels. So yes, the improvement is amazing.
It's like a miracle, actually. We've been talking to Dr. Andreas Aspris, the head of the ENT department at Nicosia General Hospital, and Marina Kalimachou, audiologist, about this new rollout of free hearing checks for all newborn babies on the island. Well, that about wraps up this edition of the Cyprus News Digest. Many thanks for your company. Hope you'll join me next week. Till we meet again, take care and God bless. Bye-bye now.